The like he has mentioned, it's tough out there for plaintiffs' firms, plaintiffs' lawyers to take on the big corporations, to take on the trucking companies. David versus Goliath is an analogy that's been used, forever since you were in Bible school when you were a little kid, and it can be analogized in every situation. It's to achieve a goal that seems insurmountable. Well, the analogy of David versus Goliath in commercial truck wrecks is certainly no exception, and actually it's a really good analogy because of what you're up against. Unfortunately, when you get a case, be it catastrophic injuries or even a death, you get the phone call from a family member. That's usually a week later. They're not worried about calling a lawyer at the scene of the wreck. They're worried about getting their family member medical care and treatment. So let's say you do get that case and it's 10 days later. Well, you're 10 days behind, real behind. Because insurance companies, they have what's called rapid response teams, something I had never heard of until I started litigating truck wreck cases. And it is really amazing, these rapid response teams. They call an adjuster when the truck driver gets in a wreck, call the adjuster. The adjuster is on scene, sometimes before the police arrive. And this is in rural counties or in big cities. It doesn't matter. They have them stationed everywhere. And all it is to build a case against the plaintiff, to limit their liability. So you're already up against the gun from the start. So what do you do to try to combat that? Obviously, you want to get experts involved because it's going to be, it's a highly specialized field. And like I said, you're under the gun, you're already behind, and they're already building a case against your client. Now, experts provide a lot of insight. I mean, you want to get them started at the very beginning. They do accident reconstructionists. You got federal reg experts, human factors experts, even medical experts. Obviously they come later, but you really have to get experts involved in the early stages in order to, build that case. Cases that seem unwinnable. And I'm going to talk to you about two cases that I have or had. They have since settled where my client pulled out in front of a trucker. In both instances, my client, I represent the state, they were killed. What evidence is there? Well, there's only one story about how that wreck happened, and that's from the truck driver. So when you look at the wreck report, and wasn't speeding, pulled out in front of him, you think, well, this is a turn down. I can't take this case. It's not winnable. Well, that's not true. And I'm sure in your practice you've seen a wreck report or two that has a mistake. And that's not to say anything bad about the troopers or the police officers because, honestly, they're worried about more important things than what's on a wreck report. They're trying to get people medical attention. They're trying to, make sure evidence is not contaminated, that kind of stuff. So I don't fault them for that, but time and time again we see wreck reports that have a mistake, that are incorrect, and it doesn't seem very important to the trooper or the police officer because, like I said, they have more important things to do. But it's extremely important to us in the very initial evaluation, and it's very important to the insurance adjusters on how they defend the case. So, we're going to talk about experts, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up because this is one of the most important things that you can do in a trucking case, and that is to send a protect and preserve letter. Without this, you give the trucking company and the insurance company free will just to destroy documents. I mean, they get to say the federal regulations only require 6 months, logbooks to be kept for 6 months. We did that and we destroyed them. We didn't hear from you, And that goes with all the other documents, maintenance records. They had to be kept for a year, but there are instances in where you get involved in a case like a commercial truck race where it's a year later. I mean, I've had that several times. So when you send these and you see that we send one that's very long, and it asks and preserve basically everything. Qualcomm records, which is extremely important because you want to be able to track the driver. You want to know where he's been or she, where he was going. That way you can kind of see whether he's in compliance with the hours of service. And this is kind of just an example of different things that we ask for, and I'd be happy to provide a copy to anybody that wants it. but essentially he just asked for a ton of information, and without this, you don't get the spoliation charge, which is something that is extremely powerful. I have a case right now where they denied that they did not get this from me, even though I sent it certified and it had a signature, but apparently we couldn't figure out, or they couldn't figure out, whose signature was on the certified mail. Well, after fighting them a bunch, lo and behold, this letter turns up. And it turns up with writing on it. Not only did they receive it, but they actually assigned people to get specific documents per paragraph. You think they turned over any of these documents? Nope. Okay, well it seems like a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. Because what they did was spoil evidence. And you get to do that jury charge, and you get to have the presumption that all this stuff that they destroyed is bad for them. And any juror can take that information and say, they did something wrong. Regardless of the wreck, they have something to hide. It's kind of like objections in court when you're in trial and you just keep objecting, the jury thinking, he doesn't want us to hear something. They get skeptical. So it's a very powerful thing. And like I said, I'll provide a copy to anybody that wants it. But it's the number one thing I do. It's very, very important. Some more stuff. The question is always is do I need an expert in my trucking case? And of course, cost versus damages is number one in my mind. Obviously, experts are really expensive. They charge anywhere from $500 to $1,000. And if you got a case in which it's physical therapy, soft tissues, not really any heat in the case, well, is it really justified getting an expert involved? Is the juice worth the squeeze, basically? And most instances it is, because I know that you've seen this, and it's really just kind of common sense. When you got an 80,000-pound commercial motor vehicle colliding with a passenger vehicle, I don't care if it's a Suburban or a Prius, commercial motor vehicle always wins. And the damages are not, just little damages like in a regular car case. They're always significant, and unfortunately and tragically, a lot of deaths. In fact, I've never seen a truck driver get hurt in these wrecks. They all seem to walk away just fine. But I do want to say that, while I'm talking about truckers and trucking companies, obviously they're not all bad. There are a lot of great drivers out there. There's a lot of great trucking companies. So I do want to say that because it's probably going to appear that I'm picking on them or the industry. But, I've ran into many drivers, one of which I had in the case that I'm going to talk to you about. He was in a 1,000,000-mile water winner. That's like a unicorn. You just don't find those, every day. But timing. Is it 6 months since the wreck? Is there still skid marks? Is the evidence still available? All those need to be considered in whether you get an expert involved. Because obviously, if some evidence is not there, then the expert really can't do much if it's like an accident reconstructionist. The evidence still available, and this is why scene inspections, you just have to do them as quick as possible. And you need to be there with the expert. You need to be hands-on. Because what you're going to do is you're going to be looking at the scene, you're going to be talking to your expert, obviously not disclosed, so y'all can talk freely, and you basically develop your theory of the case right there on the spot. And I'll show you an example in this case I'm getting to. But getting an expert involved early can make all the difference. And what I mean by that, it can be the difference between a turn down, case you send away, and 6 figures. Like the 2 cases I'm going to show you. But visit the scene, we talked about that. Photographs are extremely important, not only when you visit the scene, but when you do an inspection of the tractor. Time and time again, we'll catch little things in those photos that we wouldn't have known about without having that inspection. For instance, whether it had an electronic control module, whether it had a GPS system. If they just told us we don't have any GPS records, well, without that picture, we kind of almost have to take them at their word, which, I'll always file a motion to compel and get an affidavit because I don't ever take them at their word. But, they can do that all day long. They say, we don't have any records, we don't have any records. And without showing the judge, here's a picture of that GPS. They have it. And then you go back to spoliation if they don't have it. So photographs are extremely important. Vehicle inspections are important. Even down to the little things like a medicine bottle being in the tractor. Tractor being really, really dirty, which I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen. Those kind of things just all play into deposition questions that you get to ask the truck driver where he or she has been, what they've been doing, were they distracted. Animations is always a good thing, and these two cases I'm going to talk to you about is where both instances, our client, the estate, essentially, she pulled out in front of a tractor. Just, pulled out. It just seems cut and dry. Like, how could it ever be the trucking company's fault? Well, we got one from a turn down. It turned into 6 figures. And then one that we didn't get from a turn down, and it's 6 figures. So moving along to scene measurements, this is important because it's going to basically give you what happened. And like I said previously, the only version that's going to be there is going to be the truck driver's version. Because more than likely, your client has unfortunately passed away, or they don't remember it because of some kind of head injury. So basically, the trooper or the police officer gets one version of the story, and that's really the story, especially if there's not any witnesses. If there's no witnesses, then you're behind the 8 ball a lot, so you have to get an expert involved. Video reenactments, those are always good. I think that's more for jury appeal, so they can get a visualization of what's going on. I think anytime you can incorporate videos or any type of animations in trial, I think it's the right thing to do, because if you've ever listened to doctor testimony, when you read a deposition, everybody's asleep. It's the most boring part of trial. I think I've seen an attorney fall asleep. So we get video depositions of even doctors. That way, people pay attention. And black box downloads. Now, this is probably the most important thing, and it's got to be done quickly. The electronic control models, while they're different on different tractors, Peterbilt or Freightliner, but if you do it and you do it quickly without them erasing the data, you get that data from that stop, that wreck. It'll record basically 2 minutes before, 2 minutes after the wreck. Everything that tractor did, everything that driver did will be displayed on data. There's also other things like a VORAD system, the Eaton VORAD system. It's a very sophisticated system, and I jump up for joy when I see one, because it's going to tell us everything. I mean, it's down to where trees are positioned, where other vehicles are positioned. I mean, it gives you a complete picture. It was like basically a video of what happened. They're very rare to get those. When tractors do have VORADs, for whatever reason, we don't get those documents. But black box downloads are very important. And that's not very expensive. Now, you can get an expert involved in just to do the download, and that's maybe a couple $100 real quick. But that $200 would be the best money you ever spent. This goes back to being behind the gun against the trucking companies. There's rapid response teams, what they're doing building cases against your client. This is just a standard. I took this out of a manual in one of my trucking cases, but essentially all of them say the same thing. Some of them are a little egregious than others, but truck drivers are taught from the very beginning when a wreck occurs, you basically shut down. You call the police, you don't render aid, you call the company next. And a lot of times they call the company first. But why they do that is because they want to get the insurance adjusters on scene. I had a case where this happened out in the middle of nowhere in Marion County. I forget the county road it was on, but like I said, it was in the middle of nowhere. I don't think you have cell service. Wreck happened. Insurance adjusters on scene before the police arrived. What did they do? They took out the logs, all the logs. He had all his log books in a briefcase. They cracked it open, took out all the logs. Would have never known about that. They said they didn't have any logs. Would have never known about that until I took the widow of the truck driver's deposition. She said, "Oh, he keeps his log books in a briefcase." Yeah, he had it on the day of the wreck. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I saw it. I remember everything. I remember the log from that day. Well, that was interesting. So I didn't have any logs. Well, they ended up producing the logs after we fought about it for a while, and guess what? All the logs were forged. Every single one of them were forged, just to be in compliance. Essentially kept keeping 2 log books, one that they're accurate and one that are the real ones. It's just one of those things where you just got to keep digging and digging and fighting, because they'll do everything and anything to pay you the least amount possible. And I think filing suit in cases is most certainly the best approach. Now, if you have a case where there's involves a commercial motor vehicle and you got just a couple physical therapy visits, no permanent injuries, no broken bones, then it may not be worth filing a lawsuit. But you got to think about the discovery phase. For example, if you have one of those type cases and, you want to settle it, whatever, and let's just say it's $50,000, you're basing your evaluation strictly on medical treatment. And that's it, because you don't have any documents. You don't have any discovery. Well, the insurance carrier might be jumping up for joy, because what you don't know is the truck driver didn't have a CDL, didn't have a valid medical card, over his hours, fake logbooks. I mean, all the kind of things that add a value to a case that turn it from $50,000 to $150,000 or $200,000. And nothing's different on your side. It's all on their side. So, I always try to look for a way to file a lawsuit or justify the filing of a lawsuit. But you can always do a pre-action discovery. I think it's one of the least used procedures in the Alabama Rules of Civil Procedure. And, there's case law out there that you can do it for any reason. And one of the main reasons you can do it for is just to make sure before you file a lawsuit, you're doing your due diligence. And, you're doing something ethically. You're not just filing lawsuits like they say that we always do. We just run out and file lawsuits for nothing. And you get that type of discovery. And who's to say you don't have to file a lawsuit after that either. You can use those documents for heat to just drive up the value. And all it does is take a little bit of your time to get potentially significant more money. This is one of the egregious things that I was telling you about in manuals. I've actually seen this done once. They're actually taught, the policy is to, basically get out of the cab and run over to the person and say, it's your fault. You mind signing this? It's crazy. And it usually backfires on them, but that's the kind of stuff that they do to try to limit liability. And sometimes you get clients that are not as educated, just don't know. And listen, if I wasn't practicing law and I got in a car wreck, I wouldn't know what to do. A lot of our clients don't know. I wouldn't know the process. It's very new to them or whatever, so they just go off and do whatever. They're like, I need my car, so I signed it. I got to go to work, so I signed it. And it could be something that just tears a case down. But, don't give statements to anyone except the police or the adjuster. The rapid response teams, they actually put the truck drivers in hotel rooms close to the scene, and they interview them, and they video it, and they always have an attorney there just to make sure it's all falling under the attorney-client privilege, because while work product you can have exceptions to and actually get some stuff, attorney-client privilege is pretty hard to crack. So they always make sure they have an attorney on scene and any kind of discussion about what's going on, because they do this in every case, so it's basically a regular course of business. So the work product doctrine would not apply. But when you bring an attorney on, then it's attorney-client privilege. So, it's just amazing how intricate the investigation and kind of what you're up against from the get-go. So here's the case examples. In both of these cases, like I said, the driver was deceased. And this one that I'm going to talk to you about first is one on the left. Truck driver was, well, I'll just tell you what the rec report says first. So here's the rec report on this case. And there it is. There's a diagram. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with Highway 82 as you go past Tuscaloosa and you're going towards Mississippi, like towards Columbus. But anyways, there's double lane, there's westbound lane, eastbound lane of 82. Here's the diagram. Our driver's over here at the stop bar on this county road, and she's going across to this gas station. It was night. It was a couple days. I think it was November 29th or something. It was a couple days after Thanksgiving. And so she goes across, and the truck driver hits her, punts the vehicle 429 feet. Pretty far, and that's a van, so it's about a 3,000-pound vehicle. Well, and I'm sorry you don't see that, but the speed had the truck driver at going, I think it was 40 miles an hour. No, I'm sorry, 50 miles an hour. And that was what the speed limit was. Well, punted at 429 feet. I don't know about that. So we went to the scene and looked at it. Well, lo and behold, it's a construction zone. Not only was it a construction zone, but the speed limit had gone all the way down at that point in time to 40 miles an hour. Well, if he was going 50, that's 10 miles an hour the speed limit. That's, I don't know, does that justify the filing of a lawsuit when your lady pulls out in front of him? Maybe, maybe not. But how about if the trucker's going 68 in a construction zone, at night, over a hill, can't see? Well, that's a little bit different. So we get the wreck report revised. We call the trooper and we say, listen, that was a construction zone. We think, the speed limit is, 45, and he revises it, and, that was helpful. And going to the scene, the truck driver, of course, testified he was going the speed limit. And that's basically what he told the trooper. And that's why the trooper put that on the wreck report. It's just one version. Well, when you do an ECM download, you get the real version. 79.5 miles an hour just a couple of seconds before impact. It actually was going up a hill, so it had decreased a little bit. But I don't know where you can drive in America 79.5 miles an hour without going over the speed limit. And now we're talking about wantonness. Contrib is not coming to play when you're going that fast in a construction zone. So just doing a little investigation now just turns into a case where you look at it and you say, I think I got to turn that one down. I'm filing a lawsuit. We got an accident reconstructions involved in this case, and not only does it help kind of give you an idea of how the wreck happened, but it also gets you past those contrib issues. He was testifying that the accident reconstructionist, engineer out of Florida, that had the trucker been going the speed limit, even just 10 miles an hour of the speed limit, it wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have collided. Obviously, your depth perception, I know that y'all have all been on a dark road and you see a tractor in the distance. It's very difficult to tell how fast it's actually coming at you because there's a lot of lights. So that was also an issue. But if he were even going 62 miles an hour, you're talking about a lot over the speed limit, and had that normal 3-second reaction perception time, he could have avoided the collision altogether. So we're not talking about potential future things. I think the defense lawyers always say, well, if he didn't brush his teeth for 10 minutes longer that in the morning, then the wreck wouldn't happen. You can just do that for anything. Well, no, we're talking about if he was actually just going 62. And I think that's something that a jury can relate to. I think a jury could say, God, if he's going 62, it wouldn't happen. Well, yeah, but it's 22 miles an hour of the speed limit. I mean, that's wantonness. So you're good on contrib, and this will all get you negligence. And in this case, we actually won on subsequent negligence because the truck driver testified, and we always try to do this, is that get them to testify that they actually saw your client's vehicle the whole time. He testified that he saw her vehicle all the way at the stop bar, and he tracked it. He followed it, saw it. Did he ever let up on the throttle? Nope. That's what the ECM download showed. 100% throttle, entire time, did not slow down, kept the same path, knowing that this car may or may not go out in front of him. Judge said, well, that's, even if she was negligent, it's subsequent negligence on the truck driver. So we actually got on a negligence theory too. So it's very important to get these experts involved for cases like that, where it turns from a 0 to 6 figures. Second case, again, wreck report, deceased, our client's deceased, represent the state. You get one version. It's right here on the wreck report. Truck driver tells trooper, well, it's going 40. Writes it down. And basically what happened on this is, this was just on it's Mercedes Drive. I'm sure a lot more probably are familiar with Vance and the Mercedes plant is on the left, and there's a little service road. It's called Mercedes Drive right there to the left if you're going towards Tuscaloosa. And so this truck driver's going on the service road, and she's pulling out of the employee entrance or exit, and T-bones. The wheel from the tractor went through the cab, and it was in one of those pictures, and I'm sorry I don't have nothing to show you, but I go back, whatever. But the wheel penetrated the side of that cab, and when you learn about all this kind of stuff, you kind of play civil engineer and stuff like that once you get enough of these accident reconstructionists. But the actual chassis, whatever, on the bottom that goes down the length of the vehicle was probably the strongest part of any vehicle. It penetrated that, went through about this far, went into the cab. The headlights were shining on her head. Unfortunately, of course, that killed her. So you're thinking 40 miles an hour again, and it did that damage? That don't seem right. Well, you only got one version. But when you inspect the vehicle and you do the ECM downloads, you know, that zero case turns into 6 figures. This was interesting because when we did the vehicle inspection, I noticed the puck right there. That puck is an Eaton-Vorad system. I mean, I was just so thrilled because it was going to tell us what happened. You know, right or wrong. I mean, if it told us that our lady driver was in the wrong, the truck driver was doing everything right, that's fine. You know, we just want to get down to the bottom of it. Of course, we don't spend any more money and time if, you know, down the road we're going to lose and our lady was at fault the whole time and we just don't have much of a case. So I'm excited. Fortunately, the Vorad system was not turned on, and then it was erased. So, spoliation. Now your case just turned real powerful. Next thing about the inspection is they said they didn't have Qualcomm or GPS records and all that stuff, which nowadays, unless it's a very, small trucking operation, all trucks are going to have GPS of some sort. If not, then you get the cell records with cell location. It's a pain. I just did it recently. You know, I think it was 2,000 pages of cell records that has cell location, and you got to convert the latitude and longitude to get it, but it does the same thing. It just takes a lot more time. But looking at this, GPS. They said they don't have it. Right there, you can see clearly that tractor had GPS, and they could track the location of that tractor wherever it went. Why was that important? Well, it was important because when we tracked it, after we got the records, after fighting for it, the driver hadn't been asleep. He left Dothan at, I think it was midnight, and drove to Montgomery, Georgia, back to Montgomery. But on his log, it said he left Dothan that morning to go to Montgomery to pick up a shipment. He'd already been taking shipments everywhere. So that's important because, wow, that just drives up the value so much in the case. Now the case where your lady just pulled out in front of somebody is turning into, well, over his hours. Could have been speeding. We'll find out that later. The Eaton-Vorad, spoliation, turns into a good case. Didn't seem like it at the very beginning. Also in this case, this is, I wish you could see a little bit better, but there were trees. That's the employee entrance or exit right there. She was coming out right here. Wreck happened right there. Well, when you visit the scene, I noticed, could she even see? That tree right there is pretty big obstruction in view, and this light right here. Mercedes, we got records from Mercedes, and there had been so many wrecks there. There's now a stoplight. They've actually, after this wreck, they removed that tree. So now you don't have contrib. She couldn't see the tractor. She didn't have appreciation for the danger. So if you can't see what you don't know what you're doing, then there's no contrib. So that's just one little nugget that helps you in your case. And you get experts involved, like human factors expert, or even an accident reconstruction like we did in this case. And you get lines of sights, videos, photographs, and like I said, videos and photographs I think is the best thing for a juror because the juror wants to know, yeah, you're telling me it's an obstruction, but I want to see the obstruction. So when you put them in that place, when you put them right there looking down and they see it, they believe you, obviously, because they can see it for themselves. It's another picture of the big old tree right there. And that's actually a picture from this wreck. It was taken a couple hours later. These wrecks, especially like that, and you can just see how badly damaged that Mazda 6 is. They've actually been separated, but it was pretty gruesome. And here's the truck driver. And again, we're working on the one-story theory. And he was relentless on his testimony on the speed. Well, I don't know if we got volume. What about the tree vision? Did you notice that as you're approaching that? These people that are pulling out of here may not be able to see down the road because their vision is obscured.
Yeah, that's the reason why, like I
there it is. There it is. I mean, you get him not only lying about the speed, of course, but he knows. He actually testified some more. He knew that at this point in time, it was a shift change. It was going to be extremely busy coming out of that employee exit. And, we're from there, so I see it a lot when I go to Birmingham, and it is. I mean, there's cars going in and out, in and out. So he testifies that he knows that, and that's why he was calm, he slowed down. I think I asked him maybe 19 times how fast he was going, and I think it went from 44 all the way down. I think the last one I asked him about, I think he said 40 or 5 miles under that. So he's now put himself 10 miles an hour under the speed limit at the point of impact. But there's your wantonness. He knows that these vehicles are coming in and out, yet he made the conscious choice to speed, to basically not care. He wanted to get back to Georgia to pick up another load. He'd already been there. Even the logs didn't show it. He was over his hours, extremely over his hours. And that breaks you out of contrib. Let's see. The next slide, right here, there it is. I apologize for this box. I don't know, it came with it like.
Now, regardless of the accuracy of this document, if you'll look on the, I guess it's the second page on page 333, it's actually produced by your lawyer. It has a countdown. Are you familiar with this kind of readout? Have you seen this stuff before? Okay. Well, I'm just going to direct you to where it's the middle of the page, and that column starts -9, -8, -7, -6, and it's all the way down until you get to 0. See that? Okay. Well, if I'm reading this correctly, and the testimony comes out that this is accurate, it's authentic, and this has you going at 61 miles an hour at T-minus 1 second prior to impact. Would you dispute that? Yeah, there ain't no way.
Well, testimony showed that that document was accurate. Even their own expert had to concede that the speed is accurate. We did calibrations of the tires and stuff. Everything was accurate. So now he's put himself from 35, and now we got him at 61. And that was, consistent with the damage to the vehicles. We knew all along. I mean, you don't have to be an expert in this to look at the damage and say, you're going to go on 40. So you got him over his hours and speeding, and he was just adamant about this, and shame on his lawyer for not showing him that document. That was the last thing I showed him the day after a 7-hour deposition. And he had no idea that was coming. It was just amazing that he didn't know that there was a document out there that shows him speeding. I'm sure he would have changed his tune a little bit, but here it is right here. It's the ECM download that's performed. You can see it's got everything on there, the time, the vehicle speed, engine speed. And I always think this is important, and that's the throttle percentage. Yeah, they're going fast, but were they coasting? Were they looking to see if a car was coming out and maybe getting on the brake, coming off the throttle? I think those are really important factors because it kind of gives you an idea of what the trucker is seeing, what he's doing in the cab. Well, in this instance, this is 3 seconds to impact, and you can actually see above that it says 100% -18 all the way down to 3. So he comes out there on that side street, Mercedes-Benz Drive, and he is on it. 100% throttle from 18 to -3 seconds. Well, that's how he got to 61 miles an hour. I mean, flying. You can use this data, and this is kind of where the hands-on thing comes in, because this is, my wife's an accountant. I'm terrible with math, but I know just a little bit enough to get a calculator and be dangerous. But you can do this because this is just straight math from time and distance. How many feet per second does a car travel? You get that, and then you just back it up. Well, when you do this, if he would have continued at that 45 mile an hour, right there at 18 seconds, and just stayed the speed limit, she would have been on the interstate. She would have been way gone. But instead, he chose all the entire time, knowing it was going to be busy, knowing there was cars coming out, knowing there was an obstruction, and still yet chose to go 61 miles an hour. And of course, he didn't have time to brake. He was going 61. He was on the throttle 3 seconds prior to impact. So looking at all that data, and then going back to the wreck report, you can see that that case that was a 0, that thought, man, that was going to be the one. I was going to turn it down. Not always the case. In fact, a lot of times when you just do a little investigation, get experts involved in the very beginning, you save on your money, or you get your money back exponentially, because you can normally find something that would help the case, and if it doesn't, that's fine as well. But at least you attempted, because one attempt, changing that 0 to a 6-figure, is all you need. It definitely make you want to do it again. And these kind of cases, it's kind of bittersweet. They excite me. I get really pumped up about trucking cases, I guess just because of all the documents, and you find all the discrepancies, and for whatever reason, they lie on applications like crazy. But it's bittersweet because, unfortunately, your client or the estate that you're representing, they're seriously injured, if not dead. So, I always have to come back to that and control myself, but these cases can be a lot of fun. It certainly can be profitable, even cases that you don't think would be profitable, just looking at the wreck report, even talking to the trooper, because there's actually a witness statement in this case. And after I talked to the witness, got an affidavit, she said, I never made that statement. And he had her saying that car just pulled out in front of it, no time to react, she didn't look, she didn't stop at the stop bar. Well, found out that to be untrue. She never made that statement, and in fact, our client did stop at the stop bar. So, that's just another example of using the wreck report not using the wreck report as a determination of whether you need to accept a case or turn it down. You sure can.
Can you explain the 100% throttle at T-3, then 0, then back to 83 at T-1?
Absolutely. So, like I said, this gives you a snapshot of the 2 minutes before the wreck and 2 minutes after a sudden braking event. Basically when the tractor, and they're set up different parameters, but more likely than not, then it's usually a 7 mile an hour change in speed. It snaps, it starts recording. So the 19 seconds is 19 seconds before the actual hard braking event, which it's a sudden change in speed. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a braking event. When you hit another vehicle, the mile an hour goes way down, so it records that. And that's what happened in this case, because he got on the brake when he hit her, not before, because you can see right here, he's 100% throttle, so it means he's got the pedal to the floor. That's what 100% is, because you see it reads 83%. It's very accurate as to where that pedal is and how much RPMs is actually going to those axles. And so he is on pedal to the floor, starting at 18 seconds and 3 seconds prior to the hard braking event, which was the impact. He's got it to the floor. He gets off of it. This is probably when he realizes cars coming out. So, that's most of our reactions in any wreck. If you think back and any kind of close calls, the first thing you do, you don't slam on brakes, you take your foot off the gas. It's just a normal reaction. So that's basically what he did here. But he got back on the throttle, which is even more interesting, because then you kind of set up some kind of subsequent negligence. He sees it, but yet he goes back on the throttle instead of braking or maneuvering or anything like that. He gets back on the throttle. And why would you do that? It was an answer. Of course, it was a question that he could not answer. But 0 then is the impact. So while the speeds say 61, it really is. It could be 61 or maybe a little less, because obviously between 0 and 1 second, there's decimals, whatever, nanoseconds, whatever. So it's not accurate to specific miles per hour, but call it 60. It doesn't really matter. And that's the RPMs, and they have a lot more data on them. This is just a quick snapshot. It gives you RPM, it'll give you what the truck is governed at. Just an incredible amount of data. And the VORAD system, if I had another 40 minutes, I could tell you about that, and it really is something that's just extraordinary. I hope that answers your question. No, they're not required by law. thankfully, most of them know about this, and they've gone through litigation, so you can always call them out on, you find a case before this where they did an ECM download right after the wreck, and let's say they don't have it in yours. Well, you still get them with knowledge, and they're spoliation again. As long as you sent the protect and preserve letter, you're good, because you get to pull that deposition of that corporate.
Automatically on a truck?
Yeah, it's just a black box.
Well, I mean, do you have to have a black box on a truck?
It comes equipped with the tractor when you buy it. Yeah, your car's got one. My car's got. We all have one. So now they're starting to turn the tables on us a little bit. Purpose is to get information like this to see how fast the tractor was going. Well, that's a good question, but they turn these things over when the truck driver's doing everything right. It's amazing. So I mean, I think if they want to find out what happened just as much as we did. Unfortunately, a lot of times they see this instead of 45 miles an hour, and they don't like that. That's why we don't get them all the time. That's why we don't get the VORAD. That's why we don't get the logs, all that kind of stuff. While it comes equipped, and they want, because it actually records gas mileage, how much the tractor's idling, all very important things for the trucking company because for expenses. So they get to track that, but unfortunately for them, they also have speeds. Really they just need an ECM that just tracks how much the tractor idles. It's a good question. If you come up with that, all right, because I want to know, because we could be rich with the trucking companies. I'm sure they would like that, but it comes standard with all the tractors. I mean, your truck or our vehicle's got one, and it'll tell you basically everything that this tells you. Some of them are a little bit more in detail than others, but I think it was in 2007, every vehicle basically has a downloadable ECM, electronic control module, black box, event data recorder, whatever you want to call it. So.
Mainly for our original intent was for maintenance, but it's got all this other stuff.
Yeah, and it tells you, I mean, this download is probably 300 and something pages. It tells you a lot more stuff, and I mean, they want to know diagnosis codes for maintenance. You basically just plug it up and it'll tell you what's wrong. They got a light or lamp out. It'll tell you that. They skip through all this stuff and they just go to what, lamp's out and what's the cause for it, a short or whatever, to try to fix it. So, I mean, it's used for a lot of different purposes, but they certainly don't try to download it right after a wreck. I've had instances in where they do download it and they lie about it and we eventually get it. But regardless, there has been litigation at some point with that trucking company, I guarantee it, where they've got the black box download and they testified, yeah, we do that. We want to know what's going on with the wreck and how we investigate it. We want to do a good, thorough investigation. But you don't have it in yours, well, then you're still good to go. So.
Yeah, in that case where it exposed it, they got a good case, and then when they destroy it, you got a good case.
Well, they didn't voluntarily turn this over to me. We had to hire an expert and had to get the court to let us go down there and inspect the vehicle. I mean, just like in that accident policy manual that's there, there's always something in there that says, do not let anyone inspect your tractor. The only person that can do it is an on-scene adjuster that is from the trucking company or a representative from the trucking company can be messing with your tractor. I mean, they make sure that not even the tow trucking company can get in that tractor for lots of reasons. So, like I said, you're against the gun from the word go in these cases, but just getting this kind of information helps a lot. Any other questions?